How can you build a Codespaces-like experience with Daytona and Bitbucket? Let's check it out. Let's start with why would you want to even do that? So here's a repo that is an Astro project, and I want to develop with this. Turns out, though, I don't know anything about Astro. I don't know. I know that it needs Node. I don't know much else about what all it needs. I could go digging through the README, but in this case, the README only tells me how to run it. I could go ask somebody, but I think one of the things that we're focused on is that devs shouldn't necessarily need to know this to get started. Maybe they'll want to know it to extend upon it or to build upon it, but just to make a one line change or to make a small change or just to their first week on the job, it shouldn't be something that they need to know. So how could you automate this and get an environment with one click? Turns out I wrote a browser extension which integrates Daytona and Bitbucket, and it gives me this little button right here. And this button, when I click it, will use Daytona's API to give me an environment. So you will click this and we're off to the races. This is going to take a second to load up, but while this loads up, I'm going to go talk about how that actually happened. So this is the Daytona workspace list, and here's that workspace that we just created. You'll notice that if we go over here, I could actually just take this URL and give it to Daytona as an argument using /hash and then the name of the URL. That's the simplest API for Daytona. And you hit enter and it'll go ahead and create for you a new repo in that from that URL. So you'll notice that this was the main branch. I could have switched over to the dev branch and given it the dev branch URL, and that would have worked too. If I've got pull requests, I could use this pull request, use that URL, and fire up a pull request. In all of those cases, I've got everything I need. So whether it's a button here saying, hey, open this PR for me, or a button, if we go back to the top, go back to Simple Astro. Here, or it's a URL that you build into Jira or Slack or to whatever workflow you have so that developers always have access to one click. Then you will see that the developers don't have to focus on all these other trivial problems. They can just focus on what matters. And if you've got developers who who prefer CLIs, you can also do this from a CLI. So Daytona create, and here we're going to do that pull request, fire that off, and that's up and running. So it's relatively simple to get going. And now let's check out what actually happened. So we'll go in here, we'll reload this, and you'll see all the different environments that we created. So this is the first one we created from the button click. This is the second one that we created from the using the URL with Devin directly. And this is the third one we created from the CLI. But in about a minute, we created 3 environments, all separate. So maybe I'm doing 2 different code changes. I can actually have separate environments. Let's go ahead and just dig into one of these and see what happened. So I'm going to actually open this, and I'm going to do it in the browser, but you could also do this in your local VS Code. It would work just as easily. Or if you have a local JetBrains, you can use the JetBrains gateway plus Daytona and use whatever IDE you care about. You can even SSH in and just use Vim if that's your favorite tool. And now I've got this up and running. And what you'll find is that this is actually a full Linux environment. So I've got a terminal, everything that you would expect, and we can go back and do this run command, allow, and we'll actually start it off. And now that we started it, Daytona is smart enough to know that, hey, Would you like me to open this for you? Please do, and you can get it in the browser. Now you've got basically everything that you need and inside of your environment. If you want, you can do all the things that you would normally do. So if you want to change the theme, you can. Uh, if we come down to the ports, the Daytona ports here, the other thing that we can do is you can make this a public port and then share this URL. And now you've got team members collaborating on, hey, can you see if this button works for you? Or maybe check why it isn't working for you. And so that is how, in just a couple of minutes, you can have developers focus on the code itself and making changes versus worrying about the environment and how to get one. And just have a one-click session to get a Codespaces-like experience with Daytona and Bitbucket.